and thank you for joining me today for Real Estate, Religion, and You. My name is Dr. Sylvia Black, licensed real estate broker with affordable homes and apartments, and I'm licensed to preach and ordained as a minister, and I have my PhD in Sacred Biblical Studies. And I'd like to thank you for joining me today for Real Estate, Religion, and You. Now today I'm going to talk to you on a continued basis of my book, Win the Battle and the War Against Your Giants. The Champion in You. Win the battle and the war against your giants. And this book will be available on booksgaloreandmore.com. Now today's topic we're going to talk about is your opposition is your opportunity. Your opposition is your opportunity. And we're going to be using Nehemiah as our example today. Okay? Now, no matter what kind of opposition that comes your way, when giants challenge and when mountains stand in our way, we must stand on the words of God, like Nehemiah did. We need to proclaim the truth that we are victorious and that we will beat our giants and we will overcome them with the help of God and with the strength that God gives us. We need to be determined to trust God no matter who or what comes our way. Once we actually start a project, we need to try and finish it. And we will finish it knowing that God is with us every step of the way. He's been before us, and He's prepared the way, and He's given us permission to actually do the work. Now, our weapons are not carnal, but mighty in God in pulling down strongholds. Jesus spoke the words out of His mouth when He created heaven and earth. If Jesus could speak things into existence with His mouth, then we too can speak our victory into existence with our mouths. Or we can send our giants to their grave and bury them. And once we've done that, we pour dirt on them and watch it extinguish before our eyes. Okay? Now today we're going to be talking about Nehemiah and your opposition is your opportunity. Now, so often you and I are faced with opposition, faced with people coming against us for one reason or another. A lot of times it's for ungodly reasons, and they are also uttering ungodly utterances. Okay, and there are situations and circumstances that will come against us on a daily basis. Okay, a lot of people think that because they're saved and sanctified and filled with the Holy Ghost and fire, that now things are going to be peaches and cream and you're not going to have to worry about the enemy coming against you. My brothers and sisters, I come to tell you that that is not the truth. Okay? Once you get saved, you will still suffer just like you suffered before you were saved. However, now you're going to suffer as a slave to righteousness. Before you were suffering as a slave to sin. A slave to sin is a slave, you're suffering as a slave to your own sin that you're causing upon yourself. A slave to righteousness means that you're suffering in a manner that pleases God, okay? And you probably say, well, what's the difference? Why should I become saved if I'm still going to suffer? Well, the answer to you, like I said last week, is that now you're not going to go to hell, okay? And that should be some kind of comfort, to you. Now, you must realize that you are already a champion. If you don't see yourself as a champion, you are. How could you have come out of all the mess and the stuff and the junk that you've come out of without a scratch? Unless there was something special about you, unless there was a special anointing on you. How could you have come through the storm unless you were already a champion? God does give us the strength to withstand the wiles of the devil and the giants that come our way, the mountains that stand before us, but because of the strength of God and the promises of God to be with us all the way through to the finish, we can and will withstand the storms of life and win the battle and the war against our giants. We're human, however, so it's natural to feel what you feel. If you feel like crying, go ahead and cry, when you feel afraid, worried, sometimes you may have to give in to those feelings. But no matter how much hell and high water that I have been through, or that you will go through, no matter how many tears you will cry, no matter how much persecution or abuse that you've endured, I never question God's ability to rescue me and deliver me out of the hands of the enemy safely and sound. I always believed in God, and even if I didn't believe in myself, I never cursed God or talked down to him or about his ability if I felt I was going to deal. If I felt that I, was getting a little discouraged in God's ability, I just keep my mouth shut. I'd sing my songs of Zion. I sing my praise songs. I know that no matter what I'm going through or what I will go through or who comes against me, if he only looks like you're defeated. But God doesn't afflict the child of God without a divine reason or a divine purpose. Okay, now we're going to get into today's topic, which again we're talking about is your opposition is your opportunity. Okay. Now the book of Nehemiah is a narrative history. Nehemiah authored it about 430 BCs. The key people in the text include Nehemiah, Ezra, Sanballat, Tobiah, who all helped him write it about 445 BC. Now, Jerusalem had a temple, but there was no protection for the city from further attack. Nehemiah travels to Jerusalem and uses his leadership skill to rally a citywide construction crew. Within a few weeks, the walls around Jerusalem were built and standing tall, and the enemies lost confidence. Whenever you work for the Lord, you are going to run into opposition. Okay, whenever you decide you're going to return from your wicked ways and you're going to live for God no matter what, opposition will come your way. Okay, but just to give you an example of some of the opposition that I have been facing, which led me to actually write this book, The Champion in You, Win the Battle in the War Against Your Giants, available on Books Galore and more. It started out as a testimony, actually. And once I testified about it, immediately I knew I was going to write a book. Okay, because I had to explore what the Bible had to say about giants. Not just the literal giants, but the figurative giants as well. The giants that come in our way in terms of stuff and mess and junk. And also people who come in our way and the things that they do, the things that they say. Okay? Now, I always say that when, the Bible specifically tells us particularly to, obey our masters. Okay, we don't have masters anymore. It may seem like it when you go into work that you're working on the plantation, okay? They work you like a slave and pay you slave wages, but at least you're getting paid, okay? But God tells us to respect those in authority, okay? And I'm saying to you, yes, we should respect those in authority, but not necessarily the respect that they deserve, because you and I know a lot of them don't deserve any respect at all. They deserve to get exactly the same thing back to them that they've been giving to us. However, God expects us to be obedient to his word, and then so he expects us to give them respect. Now, how do we give them respect? Well, a soft answer turneth away wrath. You don't argue back at them. If they say, put the cigarette out, put the cigarette out. If they say, let me see your license, let me see your license. Don't ask them any questions, just let them see your license. A lot of times, this is an opposition. When you look at people coming against you, you think to yourself, what's happening here? You mean this is opposition. How can I turn this opposition into an opportunity? Okay. Now that's, for me, people have been coming against me in opposition. I have been suing people. I'm going to get a license plate that says sue them. I might even change my name to Sue, But I have been suing people lately because that is my opportunity. Okay? I feel helpless if I cannot take you to court and sue you. Because I know that, as a child of God, lately I've been thinking, that I want to put my hands around your neck and I want to choke and mess out you. But I know that is not something that I should be thinking about. That would be reverting back to my old ways before I was saved. But a lot of people don't realize that we weren't always Christians, and just because I'm soft or just because I'm quiet don't mean I'm stupid or don't mean that I'm scared of you, A lot of times with me, when people come against me, I keep my mouth shut because I'm scared of my own ability. And I know that anything that I do could get me in trouble. So in order to be able to stay in the Word of God, I keep my mouth shut and I remain humble until the situation passes. And then I can think straight and whatnot and find that if this presented an opportunity for me to take action. And more than likely it does. My former employer, which will remain nameless, They had kept me from getting unemployment. They hated me. I would just say hated me so much, And guess what? I was only there for 3 months. A lot of times you may think that, oh, I'm only at the job for a couple of months. Can I still sue? And that's what I thought. I figured, I said, Dad, I'm only here for a couple of months. Am I still going to be able to sue? But guess what? I sent the papers out anyway, and sure enough, I was able to sue. Okay, so I sued them, and a couple of months later, they sent me a check. I won the case, so now I'm fighting with unemployment now. I'm going to not ask them, I'm going to compel them, just like I compelled my former employer to pay me for the insults, and the innuendos that you caused me on my job, and the stuff that you allowed to go on that job, okay, while I was there. See, me being a quiet individual, I don't say nothing. But one day you might find that I snap. And then it's all over then, and I try to compose myself, I try to keep myself under composure, and I find that, if I have to curse you out, I'll do that first before I put my hands on you, because I'm not going to go to jail for calling you all kind of everything but a child of God, okay? I would rather do that first than to even think about, getting violent, because I know that the opposition that you have brought my way is going to create an opportunity for me. It doesn't feel like it always at the time, because you're really angry, you're going through a tremendous amount of emotions, and now I'm compelling the New York State Department of Labor to give me back all those 26 weeks of unemployment that they didn't give me, because my employer had won the appeal. They actually changed the basis of their termination, the reason why they terminated me, and they was able to win the appeal. But now that I have won the lawsuit against my employer, for which they had claimed that I was not eligible for unemployment because of misconduct. So now, since I've won the lawsuit against them, that misconduct now is thrown out the window. So now I'm filing a lawsuit against them to get my unemployment, all those 26 months of unemployment. Okay? And I think I may have told you recently that my house was illegally broken into and my cats were taken out of my house. Okay, you probably know the organization. I'm not going to mention them here. And now I have a lawsuit against them. I'm filing a lawsuit against them for violation of my Fourth Amendment under the Constitution, U.S. Constitution. For right to feel safe in my persons and in my place. They didn't have a right to come in my house without a warrant, okay, and without a signed and notarized statement from a judge. Okay, plus they forged a document that looked like a warrant with a picture on it. I guess the picture is for the illiterate ones, right? The ones that can't read. So you look at the picture and say, oh, there's the house, But they forged a document and said that a judge had signed it, which they didn't. So those oppositions that I have faced created an opportunity for me. And at the time, I was just trying to be cooperative. I was just trying to be, leave me alone, get out my house, I'm answering your questions, as God has commanded me to do, just to be humble, basically. And then it turned out to be an opportunity for me. See, like I said, don't sleep on the quiet ones, You look at a person and whatnot, and you think, oh, she don't know nothing, she's not intelligent. He's not intelligent, he's quiet, he's scared of me. But that's not the case, baby. We're quiet because we know, and sometimes we're even afraid of our own ability. I know what I'm capable of doing. If I open up my mouth, and sometimes even if I look you in your eyes, I have to look down, because if I look you in your eyes, I feel like I'm going to lunge across that counter or wherever I am. And then that's going to be it. We're going to be rumbling and tumbling, and I'm going to be the one in jail. So I'm like, nah, that ain't going to happen like that. You're not going to lock up every black person that you see because you're making them angry. That's what they want. They want to see us, then that's what happened with Nehemiah. Nehemiah ran into so much opposition when he was building the walls. But he had got God's permission first before he had built the walls. He had prayed to God and asked God, okay, what should he do? God gave him permission to go ahead on, and he did it, okay? He, like I said, Nehemiah asked the Lord to remember what he has done and the things that he has done, and for God to bless him. Now Nehemiah finds himself defending the oppressed in chapter 6. Still more opposition. He continues to defend the oppressed, and finally they finish building the wall in 52 days. Okay? The wall is complete. And now the naysayers are going to continue to complain. Okay, why are they complaining? You have to probably figure this out because, first of all, okay, let me, and I'll explain to you why they complained in a minute. Now, Nehemiah ran into a lot of opposition with the people, with the naysayers, and they tried to discourage Nehemiah by using ungodly tactics, which they would try to do with us. Okay, they want us naked. They want us killing each other on the streets. They want us violent and hostile. But we need to use the constructive approach. If you feel that you have been mistreated or something has been done wrong to you on your job, or out in the street, or in your home, or wherever it is that you feel that you have done something, and you feel that somebody has done you wrong, if it don't sit right in your gut, honey, you need to open up your mouth and talk to somebody. Look up the appropriate agency online. Send a letter out to that agency and see if they can assist you and find out what the next step is to do. It's time consuming. It may take time, but you'll still come out in the end a winner. Okay, Nehemiah ran into a lot of opposition. Nothing the naysayers did or said discouraged Nehemiah from building the wall. God will help you finish the job you start. Nehemiah relied on the strength and the protection of the Lord. He prayed before he ventured out, and he prayed when he ran into opposition, and he prayed when he completed the job. Okay, we need to always keep that in mind. We should always keep our mind stayed on Jesus, who is the author and finisher of our faith, especially when we are faced with so much opposition from our giants. People will appear to be giants, and their voices will appear to be loud and obnoxious. Okay, but they really are not giant at all, because my God is bigger than you or your giant. You can tune them out, walk away, but don't turn your back on them. Okay, kinfolks used to say, better to walk away. Better there she go than here she lay. And I say, better to walk away than be carried away. Okay? Now, why was it so important that the wall was built? And this has to do with why the naysayers were so angry. Now, after the Babylonian captivity, a remnant of Jewish people had returned to Jerusalem under the leadership of Zerubbabel and Ezra. These returned exiles had rebuilt the temple, but they were now in need of protection. The lack of fortified walls around the city left the people defenseless against the enemies. These naysayers, they were enemies. Okay, they were the ones that were coming in, this is my opinion, they were the ones that were coming in and they were making trouble for the people of the city because there was no wall around them to protect them. So they had, either they were doing it or they had someone else doing it, and they were coming around, they were stealing, it was robbing, they were afflicting the people, they were causing much trouble to these people because they had no protection of, the wall. And when Nehemiah realized it, he decided that he wanted to do something for the people. Because he was the governor and he wanted to do something. Okay? So now these returned exiles, like I said, they rebuilt the temple. The lack of fortified walls around the city left the people defenseless against enemies. Weather, wild animals, opposing people, and other opponents could easily enter and cause great trouble to the people. Now, according to the report Nehemiah received, the remainder in Jerusalem was humiliated. A city with broken walls revealed a defeated people. Okay, so everybody's going to look at you and say, oh, they have already been defeated. We don't want to go there and start our, raise our family or whatever. Okay, the Jews who had returned to their homeland were both unsafe conditions and were both in unsafe conditions and humiliated at living in a destroyed city. That's like when people, you live in a place where there's a lot of rundown buildings, you know what I mean, and you be like, Dad, this is where, I got to live at, you know what I mean? Or you live in a city where, a lot of drunk dealers come up and down the street, or, a lot of, unsafe conditions are in the neighborhood where you live. And that's considered as a destroyed city, and you can feel humiliated at times coming in and out of your house. You're not feeling safe coming home too late at night. You have to come home at a reasonable time, or you have to come in and shut your door and just leave everybody alone. Don't say nothing to nobody. Okay, you see the trouble that we're in. Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us build the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace. Also, the rebuilding of Jerusalem's walls would show God's blessing upon the people. Now they had the protection that they needed. Okay, and now that the city would not be in ruins and they wouldn't have to be humiliated anymore, they could rebuild the city and feel safe. Okay, that's why the naysayers were so hostile and opposed Nehemiah's building of the walls. When the wall was built again, the naysayers wouldn't be able to persecute and mistreat the people anymore. Okay, they wouldn't be able to blab and say, oh, look, they don't have a wall of protection around them. So we can go and do this. Come on, let's do this. And the naysayers probably even lived in the city themselves. And these guys were officials, city officials and whatnot. So, you got people, city officials that sit in high places that still do corrupt things, So just, don't think that just because they're, sitting in a high place that they're, honest or what have you. But Nehemiah quoted God's words to Moses in prayer, saying, if you return to me and obey my commands, then even if your exiled people are in the farthest horizon, I will gather them from there and bring them to the place I've chosen as dwelling for my name, Nehemiah 1 and 9. Rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem was an important sign so that the enemies of Israel, sign to the enemies of Israel. Okay, it's telling them, you keep out. You're not going to have access to my property anymore. You're not going to be able to ruin the city anymore. So you stay out. Rebuilding of the God of heaven will give us success. This is what Nehemiah was saying. We, his servants, will start rebuilding, but as for you, you have no share in Jerusalem or any claim or historic right to it. Nehemiah 2:20. And rebuilding the walls showed that God was with his people upon the completion of the walls. Nehemiah wrote, when all our enemies heard this, all the surrounding nations were afraid and lost their self-confidence, because they realized that this work had been done with the help of God. Nehemiah 6:16. Destruction of Jerusalem's walls left the people open to troubled and shameful acts. Rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem again was very important because it revealed that God's blessing served as a sign to Israel's enemies and showed God was their people. The walls provided protection and dignity to a people who had suffered and judgment of God, but had later been restored and returned to the promised land. The walls were rebuilt when the people rebuilt their houses and rebuilt the temple, and the people confessed their sins. In chapter 11, the people promises together not to neglect the temple of our God. They dedicated the walls of Jerusalem and they made provisions for the temple by performing the service of their God and the service of purification, as commanded by David and his son Solomon, and so did the singers and the gatekeepers. They had a celebration. They celebrated a lot. Okay? This is during the time when the people of Jerusalem provided the Israelites with food and water in the wilderness and hired Balaam to curse them. Remember the story? Okay, though our God turned the curse into a blessing, evil deeds were taking place when Nehemiah had left for a period of time. And when he returned, he became upset, and the Bible says he prayed the following prayers to God. Remember this good deed, O God, O my God, and do not forget all that I have faithfully done for the temple of my God and its services. Remember this good deed also, O my God, have compassion on me, according to your great and unfailing love. Remember them, O God, O my God, for they have defiled the priesthood and the solemn vows of the priests and Levites. And remember this in my favor, O my God. These were 3 separate areas in the Bible. And I've been talking to you about my book, The Champion in You, Win the Battle in the War Against Your Enemies. How could you have become a champion so far unless, you've already come out of all the mess and the stuff and the junk that you've been through? We're all champions. We have to start claiming victory, in everything that we say and everything that we do. Okay, Nehemiah had faced much opposition. But it didn't stop him, He continued to pray to God. In other words, is this what you really want me to do, God? Am I doing the right thing? These people are coming against me so hard. Maybe it's not what you really want me to do after all. These are sometimes you can doubt yourself. When you're doing the work of the Lord and you know that you're doing the right thing, But then so much opposition comes against you, and you wonder to yourself, am I really doing the right thing? Is this, the right way to go? You know what I mean? But his first opposition came in Nehemiah 2:19-20, New Living Translation, when Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem of Arab heard of our plan. They scoffed contemptuously. What are you doing? Are you rebelling against the king? They asked. I replied, this was Nehemiah talking, the God of heaven will help us succeed. We, his servants, will start rebuilding the wall. But you have no share, no legal right or historic claim in Jerusalem. In chapter 3, he begins to repair the wall with help. In chapter 4, New Living Translation, he receives much opposition once again from the blabbermouths, Sanballat, who were very angry when he learned that the walls were being rebuilt and tried to discourage them. Tobiah and Ammonite also tried to discourage them. Then Nehemiah prayed once again to the Lord. Nehemiah 4:4. He says, hear us, O God, for we are being mocked. May their scoffing fall back on their own heads, and may they themselves become captives in the foreign land. Okay. Nehemiah 4:7-13 talks about, but when Sanballat, Tobiah, and the Arabs and Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the work was going ahead and that their gaps of the walls of Jerusalem were being repaired, they were furious. And you know why they were furious? Because they were probably the ones that were actually going into the city and helping to destroy the city. They were the ones that actually had something to do with that. So they was like, why you building the wall? You messing up our plan to steal and rob, But of course, this was done in the name of the Lord. This was a good thing, and it was meant to happen. And Nehemiah accomplished it, and he did it regardless of how many times people came against him. And these people, they didn't even live in the city. So like Nehemiah said, they didn't have no claims. You ain't got nothing to do with this. This is none of your business. Stay out of it. Mind your business. Now, you must realize that you are already a champion. If you don't see yourself as a champion, you are. How could you have come out of all the mess and the stuff and the junk that you've come out of without a scratch? Unless there was something special about you, unless there was a special anointing on you. How could you have come through the storm unless you were already a champion? God does give us the strength to withstand the wiles of the devil and the giants that come our way, the mountains that stand before us, but because of the strength of God and the promises of God to be with us all the way through to the finish, we can and will withstand the storms of life and win the battle and the war against our giants. Those oppositions that I have faced created an opportunity for me. And at the time, I was just trying to be cooperative. I was just trying to be, leave me alone, get out my house, I'm answering your questions, as God has commanded me to do, just to be humble, basically. And then it turned out to be an opportunity for me. So anyway, I want to thank you for joining me today. My name is Dr. Sylvia Black. I have my PhD in Biblical Sacred Studies. And this is a book that I have written called The Champion in You. Win the battle and the war against your giants. And I want to thank you for joining me today. And next week I will be bringing you another topic right here on Time Warner Public Access TV Channel 20, Wednesdays 6:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 12:30 to 1 in the afternoon. Holla at a sister. Peace out.